Hi, and welcome. It is Environmental Action Civics Week, and this is our final event of the week, and it's going to be a great event. I'm super excited for you guys to listen to this panel. It's about the CEE-Change Fellows, which is a program of NAAEE, and it's been funded by the EPA through their EE 360 Plus program and the Cedar Tree Foundation, who's also a great friend of ours. And I have had the amazing privilege to sit on the advisory council of that group since the start. And so I'm so excited to have the chance for you all to hear about the great things that this program is doing. We have some great panelists today. We have Richard Tusabe from Yes Global Initiative, Hannah Barg from the Wild Center, Gloria Desanker from Map Nerd Consulting, and I have the incredible honor of introducing your moderator, who is Sarah Jennings. And I have the great privilege of Sarah Jennings being a member of the Earth Force staff. Sarah's been with us a couple of years. Sorry about that. I just picked up a piece of paper. Sarah's been with us a couple of years. And before that, she was a classroom educator for about 10 years in Title I schools, most of that time in DCPS, the District of Columbia's public school systems. And before that, she was a City Year Vista working in schools. She managed Vistas as well. And since moving from the formal to the informal education field, Sarah has built her expertise and collaboration with partners. And just a side note, if you know Sarah, she is an amazing partnership builder. So I'm just going to put that out there for you. But she's also worked on building meaningful, experiential, place-based, problem-based learning, as well as really helping young people understand their civic identity and their civic voice, which is incredibly important. Currently for us, Sarah manages the Caring for Our Watershed program, which is a partnership that we do here in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Through that program, she trains school educators, she works with school districts, she works individually with young people to help them, as I said, understand their youth voice, but she also consults with a whole bunch of other organizations that are trying to understand how to do environmental action civics. On top of all of that, you would think there might be two Sarahs with all of this. Sarah also is out there helping school districts like Montgomery County and Prince Williams County and Fairfax County think about how to create and implement environmental learning plans. And so she does a great deal of work and is really, I think, one of the most talented and exciting people that we've had on staff in a long time. So we love having her here with us. So this is my praise moment. I don't get to do this very often with staff.
Wow.
So I'm just gonna do it as much as I want.
Is my review meeting too?
No, that's going to be different. No, I just want to say that you guys are in good hands here, and I'm really excited to listen to Sarah dig in and all of you talk about your projects. And so, good luck, have a fun time, and to everybody watching, this is exciting stuff. So, thanks for joining us.
Wow. Thank you so much, Vince, for setting the table on who I am and Earth Force. And we're really excited to be here this Friday. It is the last day of Environmental Action Civics Week. This is the second time that we've done this. Last year was our inaugural week, and it's been going really well. So we'll plug this again at the end. But if you missed some of those earlier events this week, please check out the recordings on our website. They'll be up there soon. So yeah, as far as engaging with us today, before we get into introductions of our wonderful guests here today, I do want to encourage you to join in on this conversation. You can do that by sharing in the chat. You can share, for example, now sharing in where you're joining us from, any questions throughout this whole session. We're not waiting to the end or anything like that. We're just going to have a conversation together. So as you're putting questions and comments in the chat, they'll come up just like that as a banner, and our panelists can answer them and we can add that comment to the conversation. So I am super honored to be here today with three amazing people, Richie, Hannah, and Gloria, who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the past couple of weeks leading up to this. And I'm really excited to continue working with you as well. So I got connected with the CEE-Change Fellows back in the fall, And for those of you who don't know, it's such a clever acronym, I think, right? But that stands for Civics and Environmental Education Change Fellowship. And Vince Meldrum mentioned the NAAE initiative that we really have been supporting as Earth Force as well. So I'd love to just dig in. Our whole purpose today is to dig into civic ed and environmental ed. That's the space that Earth Force lives in, and really just trying to lay on the work that these three fellows are doing in that nexus between those two fields. So I know, Richie, you were going to maybe tell us too a little bit more about the CEE-Change Fellowship and how to get involved with that. So if you want to start there, and then we'll have Hannah introduce themselves, and Gloria, you can jump in next, and then we'll get into our questions. Richie, are you able to unmute and jump in?
Yeah, Sarah, it's my turn. Oh, sorry, I'd lost the connection. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for the wonderful introductions, and thank you very much, Earth Force, for this platform. It's indeed a great week of celebrating the civics and environmental education in these kinds of space, and I'm so much privileged to be part of these conversations. Yes, my name is Richard Tusabe, and the nickname is Richie. I think many people find it very easy to call me Richie. It's a nickname I got from high school.
I think we're having some connectivity issues.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back now, Richie. You just froze for a minute. This is technology for you. It was working before, right? I think let's come back to you. Oh, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, you're here. Yay.
Yeah,
tell us where you're like zooming in from and everything and what you're up to. Maybe
why Sarah, it's a
technique.
I think we're just getting signals that always ladies first. I could first give the chance to the ladies to introduce themselves, maybe,
okay,
as I work on my connection properly. That's okay.
Totally great. Yeah. And in the chat, you can read more about the CEE-Change Fellowship there and apply for this year. So we'll be talking about that more in depth throughout the conversation. Hannah, do you want to jump in, and then we'll hand it over to Gloria for our intros?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Barg. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Climate Network Manager at the Wild Center. You can see a beautiful photo of our campus behind me. We're right on the Brackett River in upstate New York. We're a science center and museum, but we also do a lot of climate work, and I sit on the climate team. My main role is to manage our network of youth climate summits that we have that use the model that we developed here at the Wild Center to host their own events all over the world. And so I'm really excited to be here today and tell you a little bit more about how I've been participating in this fellowship, my project, and very honored to be here with Richie and Gloria, who are two wonderful co-fellows in this program with me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Desanker, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And I have been working as a geospatial storyteller, running my own small business, Macbird Consulting, and really what I love is using GIS and maps and connecting that to people and their stories. And something that I'm really passionate about is really making the technology and what you're able to do with it accessible to others, especially people of color who are disproportionately affected by climate change. And GIS and maps are just such a great way to tell a story, especially a story about the environment. So I really work with other people who are passionate about kind of telling that same story. So my project with the CEE-Change Fellowship, I've partnered with another nonprofit, North Star of GIS, and Howard University to create a series of GIS workshops that connects climate change to early African history. And we really want to kind of create a curriculum that centers the Black identity and the Black experience in how we talk about climate change, as well as Black people, just because there is such a misrepresentation about who is impacted by climate change, who causes it, as well as just Black people, both in the US and historically. So we're really trying to create that new narrative and connect teachers and academics with GIS and mapping to be able to tell the story that makes the most sense to them. So I'm really appreciative to be here and excited for this panel.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much to learn from you. Oh, and the cat is making its appearance already.
Yes. And this is Mango, one of my cats. You'll see her walking back and forth.
She's so beautiful. Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into both of your work. And then Richie, how's your connection doing? Are you able to share more about Global Initiative?
Yeah, I think it's better now.
Great. You sound great.
Okay. Yeah, well, I was still telling you and the viewers or the people who are listening that I work with an organization that I founded in 2020. It's called Global Initiative for Young Environmental Stewards, or Global Initiative. And basically, we are looking at partnering and supporting schools to implement a green curriculum in our school, different schools here. But we don't only stop there. We try to make environmental education be a little bit practical, and we tend to extend practical environmental skills to the students and the young people out there, which all at the end of the day pour into, the green revolution that the country is looking forward to have. So some of the programs that we are doing, we have the school green outreaches, where we go to the schools and talk about climate change, talk about environmental management, help the schools through the green, the school green ambassadors clubs. And these clubs are trained to practice in practical environmental skills such as tree planting, such as establishment of eco gardening and waste management, where we basically do upcycling of waste, where we try to turn waste materials into very useful products. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the African context, it's environmental management, but what do we benefit as human beings when we manage the environment? So we try to make sure that the kids and the youth get skills which can give them, a leverage to get a livelihood from these different environmental services. So currently, I'm running the project courtesy of the CCE Fellowship, which is called TEENS or Teen Project, literally meaning the Environment Education Nexus, where I try to look at environmental education in a school setting, but considering also the hope and the support that we get from the communities and the leadership in our different communities. So we are working with the Ministry of Education and Sports and the local leaders from these school communities, and also with a little bit of the parents, and then the kids in the schools to implement this kind of projects. And so far, it's very lovely that in the two schools that we've implemented the projects, we are seeing very wonderful results. We established nursery beds, and our vegetables are doing well. I just received a video where now the parents and some leaders from the local council and the teachers have teamed up, and they are planting the seedlings of the vegetables in the school compound, which is really very amazing. Because at the end of the day, we are looking at this kid lives school, goes into the community, can he or she leverage on the skills to maybe earn a living, but at the same time promoting environmental sustainability wherever they are? So I'm so much excited to be part of these conversations, and I will look forward to wonderful discussions here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah. We have such a diverse group of work going on here as well. So it's going to make for some really juicy conversations. You know, when I'm talking to people who are in this field, I think it's helpful for the audience and just to learn more about, you know, what brought you into this field. I'd love to just start there, right, as our entry points, and, you know, thinking about this nexus really, like, right, with civic ed and environmental ed. So maybe that was a personal experience you had that was really powerful to you as a young person, or maybe that was something that came to you more in your profession or in, you know, when you became older. So I'd love to hear actually from all of you guys about that kind of entry point into this type of work and what drew you in, if it was a past teacher, an educator, a past experience, or, you know, internship, or just, you know, what brought you in? What was the entry point into this nexus of this kind of niche growing field of environmental action civics, and that space where civic ed and environmental ed meet each other?
I can start. So I knew about environmental education from a very young age because my father is actually an environmental educator. And so I had early exposure to like what environmental educators do and kind of the importance of the work that they do in both formal and informal spaces, because he taught in schools, but he also did programs for nature centers and other types of like centers around the Chicago area where I grew up. So I would go along and I would tag along to programs with him and see my dad teaching. And a lot of times it was kids who were older than me, like middle or high school students. And I was just fascinated by all of the like hands-on and sort of outdoor experiences that my dad provided for students and families. And so I think that really kind of helped me understand early on that like my best way of learning is being outside and doing things that are not necessarily like in a classroom with a whiteboard or a PowerPoint. You know, I learn best when I am doing something with my hands, when I'm outside seeing things, hearing things. And when I got to high school, I went to like a Montessori school and a charter school growing up. And then when I got to high school, I went to a public high school, and I had a really hard time. I was a really passionate student, but I had a really hard time finding other people who were my age and who cared about environmental issues. And my high school years, like like really sucked. Like I had a terrible time in high school. I just like a lot of identity issues coming up. You know, I felt really misunderstood. I felt like I was like a lot more mature than other people my age and like knew what I wanted to study early on. And so that was really tough for me. Like I had a really, really rough time in high school. And I think now looking back, like that's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to working with high school students. In my job at the Wild Center, I work a lot with high school students and with high school educators. And I think one of the reasons why I chose to work with that age group is because I had a really hard time in high school, and I want to help students find other young people who care about the same things as they do, so that other people don't have that experience that I had. So yeah, I could say a lot more, but I'll stop there. I think that was one of my entry points, was just like thinking about my educational experience and having a hard time in high school and wanting to like find alternative ways to educate at that level, 9th through 12th grade.
Yeah. So you're getting a lot of hugs and resonations in the chat. So thank you for sharing that, because that drives the work that we're doing, you know, and yeah, it just keeps us going forward, right? So Gloria, would you mind sharing a little bit about maybe what brought you into this field that you're in now?
Yeah, and I'll just say thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing your story. And I feel like I can definitely resonate to the whole like identity crisis. And honestly, sometimes I still feel like I'm going through that. So I guess in that way, high school never ends. But
We're constantly growing.
yes. But yeah, so I actually have a bachelor's degree in environmental science and a master's degree in forestry. And growing up, I always had pretty close connections to nature, and like being outside. And I was really into macro photography. So getting like really close up to like nature and like flowers and insects and really like all the small details that I feel like people tend to miss when they're outside. And I just kind of use that as a way to understand the world around me in kind of like a new way. And then when I started learning about GIS, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like macro photography, but from space and for the entire world. So definitely was really drawn into using the technology and learning about it. And I feel like when I started learning about it, it kind of felt like, at least in the spaces I was in, there was just starting to be kind of that initial kind of push to like really use GIS in relation to climate change and climate change mitigation. So I definitely felt like I was kind of like on the brink of this movement and felt like, you know, I had something to contribute. And then I think something else that really contributes to what I do is, you know, being a Black woman in forestry and the environmental and GIS sectors. There was never really a lot of people who looked like me. And oh, sorry, my cat is biting me. It's very distracting. And even though, you know, there are so many people who look like me who have contributed to the history and all the success of these fields, you know, they're not given the representation or the acknowledgement that they deserve. So something that really pushes me is, you know, kind of helping to create that representation for other people, and then also bringing awareness of the other people who have been in these spaces before me, as a way to really break down the barriers of GIS, environmental science, environmental education, and just climate change. So yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, what drew me to this field and kind of what I'm doing now, and this project that I'm doing for this fellowship.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, that's super powerful, and really, I've never thought about macro photography and GIS like that before. It's really neat, and I think you guys sharing your stories. I mean, if there's young people watching, or just, you know, I think about like every decade, right? We're becoming better versions of ourselves and having that identity crisis, and so I do hope people watching this live or later are getting inspired by these wonderful humans here today. So, Richie, tell us a bit more about some of your personal experiences leading up into involving in the civic and environmental ed fields.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. There's a lot of resonance with what my fellow panelists are talking about. The stories are driven back home here. Only that for my case, the love for environment started way back. We had our dads who had just migrated from the western part of the country, and we moved with him, me and my brother, after the passing on of our mom. And then we settled in a place called Kalangala, that's on Lake Victoria. And I think in the late 90s, Kalangala had a lot of forests. You know, everything was covered with forests and very good canopy kind of forests. And it was very easy for us to go around, look for firewood, go around, play, get some wild kind of fruits and eat and enjoy. And also, Kalangala being in the middle of Lake Victoria, rather being in Lake Victoria, it was very easy back then to go to the lake and do the fishing. Even when you're just moving around, it's very easy to catch some fish. But as we grow up, there came something that is called oil palm growing on the island, and the entire forested cover was cut down and replaced with oil palm growing, and it changed the shape of the district. So from there, I got a chance to go to primary school. I entered high school, but I think in somewhere around my Form 1, that's senior 1, I think Form 1 you are around the age of 13. So I got introduced to a teacher. This teacher was teaching us geography, and she was very friendly. And I, being an orphan in the school, she took care of me and started supporting me. And I loved her subject as geography. And we used to study a lot of environmental and geographical related kind of things. Look at the forests, look at the lakes, look at the wild animals, and everything was resonating what we are going through in the district. So I took geography as a subject. I added a little bit of economics and history and entrepreneurship. So after high school, I looked for a course to do at the university. I ended up doing environmental science at the university because of the love that I developed for nature, for the environment, for the lake, for the forests and the monkeys and all the wildlife which is there. So when I entered the university, I think that's where I started to see myself going into the field of environment. Of course, in our country, when you do environmental related kind of course, you always want to look out to one organization where you think you're going to get the job, and that is the National Environment Management Authority. So our year 1, year 2, we are very happy and very enthusiastic that we are going to join that authority. It was very, very nice. We did the course, and after graduation, unfortunately, it was very hard to enter into the National Environment Management Authority because of the employment dynamics. So we had to sit back with my friends, and I started thinking of starting something that, can we start up a group where we can now go out there and talk to the rest of the people, especially the young people, about environment-related things. And I think around 2030, when we were graduating for our bachelor's, we started our group. It was called Youth Leading Environmental Change. And we used to meet in some restaurants, think about the objectives, the activities, and things that we want to do. We stayed on course, and eventually we were able to register a group and an organization, which really gave us confidence. And I personally, I decided not to go so much into the formal employment to look for jobs. Instead, I decided to do something that I feel like it is passion for me and it is freely controlled. I can go anywhere, talk to people. I can go, to schools and talk to people. So I think from 2015, 2016, that was the climax of I now starting to consider environmental education and civics engagement as my area of specialization. So we started up writing concepts, looking for people to help us, and suddenly we got people who started to really partner with us, and we are lucky to get some projects. By 2018, we started to implement some projects in secondary schools, and it was really going nice until when things started to really make much sense. And I decided that I will not do anything else, but I'll concentrate in the line of environmental education. But so far, it's really amazing that you get to meet with the young people, to get to know how eager they are to learn, the things they know, the kind of experiences they have in their communities. And when they start to share, you don't want to let go. So that's how I got to be interested to enter into this space. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is a long time coming, right? Like all of the development that you needed as a young person to get to where you are now, and all of the adults that invested in you, giving you those experiences. Super thankful you're doing the work that you're doing. It is so important. And I love when you are talking about young people, you just light up, Richie. And I know that everyone here at this table really believes in the power that we can really invest in our young people. So this kind of second session or second part of our hour together. It's going by so quickly. I'd love us to kind of do some storytelling. So Hannah, I'd love for you to share about some successful projects or innovations that have emerged from the collaboration between environmental and civic engagement educators within your program. And then Richie, if you want to share more about some challenges that you've encountered. And Gloria, if you could share some stories about how you've seen success with tailoring your approach to make sure that environmental ed and civic ed are accessible and relevant to diverse communities, especially because we know that there's communities that are disproportionately affected by climate change. So I think I'd like to move on to some storytelling in those ways that you guys have really shown and shine light on this field. So yeah, Hannah, and if keep it a little brief, and then we're going to close out and talk more about kind of some takeaways from the CEE-Change Fellows and how it's really contributed to your professional growth and the continuation and legacy of the work that you hope to instill. So we'll close out that way.
Yeah. So I just wanted to take this opportunity, thanks Sarah for this question, to share a little bit about my project for my CEE-Change Fellowship. So before I came to the Wild Center, I worked in regional government. And so I had a little bit of experience like understanding the relationship that like informal education can play with working with local governments. And so when I came on at the Wild Center, there was a project that was getting finished up, developing a youth guide for how young people can participate in this statewide program in New York State called Climate Smart Communities. And this is a certification program that local governments can do to basically show that they're committed to becoming more sustainable. And so I came on sort of in the late stages of this project to kind of tie up the ends and help publish this guide. And there were over 20 authors, many of them young people who actually participated in this program in their local governments, who contributed to this guide. So it was a really exciting project. We published it in November of 2023, so shortly after our fellowship started. And since then, we've been rolling out the guide at different youth climate summits. So I mentioned earlier, my job is to manage our network of youth climate summits. Essentially, these are like conference style events for high school students to come and learn about climate justice solutions, impacts together. And so my project is really kind of helping roll that guide out to summits in New York State and helping these summit sites develop a workshop module that they can do at their summits, as well as sharing that guide resource with participants at their summit. So that has happened at 4 different summit sites in New York State, which is really exciting. I was looking back at my fellowship goals. That was one of my goals, was to reach 4 different summit sites. And then the second part of my project is doing that exact same thing, but for outside of New York State, because we have this global network. So kind of focusing in on the US, like the national context, trying to publish part 2 of that guide and develop a workshop module for summits outside of New York State to do the same thing. So really, the purpose of this is to kind of connect summit sites across the US to civic engagement work, because it's such an important part of what our summit does and many other youth climate summits do. And there's lots of really awesome, unique case studies that we highlight in the guide. So yeah, it's been a really fun project. It's been a little bit slower start than I would have liked, but it's been really fun to see it emerge and evolve and meet some young people who I'm really excited to bring on to develop that second workshop module.
Yeah, that is awesome, Hannah. And I know I'm like been trying to help you work on that too. So it's really a great project. It's something I'm locally trying to work on in the Chesapeake Bay watershed as well. And I think it makes sense, right? With these environmental summits that are already happening, like how can we elevate them? And that answer is through, right, civic engagement, civic action. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that takes off. Awesome. And so, Richie, we'll move on to you. And if you want to share, we know that this work is really challenging. you know, with our political systems, and I know you are not in the United States, and so your challenges are, you know, specific to your setting as well. But if you want to share a little bit more about, you know, really thinking about blending civics and environmental education, like kind of even more generally, with those two fields, like what challenges have you come across and how have you addressed them?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's also quite challenging that in every forum that we've been attending to, we navigate into the same question. You know, I think
Yeah.
it is not something that is only in Uganda here or to me only, but across the globe. Everyone who is doing environmental education and civic engagement is facing similar challenges, I guess. Of course, they might be different, but yeah, there are some kind of challenges. One of the, I'll just point out a few of them, but I've realized especially if you're trying to work in a school setting, it's very hard. You always find competing kind of priorities. You go to a school, you know, you want to introduce an environmental education project, but again, the school also is focused on only academical kind of concentration, and they're looking at the academical grades of their students, and you may not blame them because that's what sometimes the business is, and that's what they should do, and that's what we've known from such a very long time ago. So to find a way to blend the two, environmental education and then the conventional academical kind of teaching, is very, very hard. Yeah, it's very hard. You try to talk to the teachers, try to talk to the school administrators, and they're like, where are you going to get the time for these extracurricular activities? I'm just happy though for Uganda that at least we are a little bit advancing. We have a new curriculum that is a little bit hands-on, and there is much respect to co-curricular or extracurricular activities. Apart from the physics, the chemistry, the economics, the biology that we study, we have a chance of embedding the kind of environmental learnings into those spaces. So things are changing a little bit. I think in the next future we shall be doing well. But also the other challenge is the limited resources. You know, I don't know whether it also rhymes well in the US or other countries, but here, access to materials, if you want to do trainings to the school setting, is very hard. You know, the technology also hinders our implementation of the project. We are mostly relying on analog or rudimentary kind of teaching aid and materials, and that is really limiting the kind of progress of this work. It's very hard, yeah, because we struggle with the internet, we struggle with the transport infrastructure, we struggle with schools which are not well set with, let me say, computer laboratories. Even if you had an iterative program of wanting to teach the students on maybe using a digital platform to learn about climate change, it's going to be hard because you go to a school, it doesn't have a computer lab, the internet is not there, the electricity is not there, so it becomes very hard. But also to maybe the last one is uh, having to win the community's hearts to be engaging in these kind of projects. Environmental projects are not that much very rewarding directly, like other socio-economic livelihood kind of projects. You know, if you told somebody to participate in tree planting, he'll be like, if I planted a tree right now, it's going to take the next 15 or 20 or 30 years to give me results. Will that still be there? You know, you start to talk about global warming and talk about pollution and start to mention that some of the highest emitters, you know, of, let me say, uh, carbon are not basically maybe the African continent. And somebody will be like, in Uganda, no, why do you want me to take action? Yet the emitter is probably in China or somewhere else. So it's very hard to win the community members' hearts, but at the same time, we try to drive things home and put a little bit of incentives on those kind of works. So that's why we've been able to address a little bit of the challenges, having resourceful partnerships. I'm so happy that this fellowship has created a platform where you share kind of resourceful materials, researched kind of data. They tell you about the workable models, and those modules we've implemented them here. But also moving towards integrating the curriculum has done very well. However much it has a little bit of the political limitations, but we believe it will come to the point where we need it. So yeah, those are the most critical kind of challenges according to me.
There's a lot. And it's complex and it's so connected. I have been thinking a lot about multi-solving, and I think when you can really get to the root cause of the environmental problem, it's usually the same root cause or related to like the social problem, which is related like to the civic, efficacy or engagement too. And so that's something we talk a lot about at Earth Force, is not just looking at, okay, the tree and planting trees, but like, why are we doing that? Why have they been cut down? What are the social issues, that have reinforced that? What are the policies and practices that have reinforced the cutting down of trees historically in the present, and really understanding how sometimes something is happening in practice, but or sometimes it's in policy, but not happening in practice, right? And so in that relationship as well. So yeah, as much as you can be having that conversation together, right, with young people, and not in these two different, right? Oh, we're in social studies, so we're talking about civic education, or we're in science, so we're talking about environmental. But as much as we can have these, I saw in the chat, Hannah, you would put like interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary conversations about these topics. I think we're setting our young people up, right? And that's how you learn better anyway, right? Our neural pathways are going to be really much stronger that way when we're helping young people make those connections. So yeah, great to dig into. Go ahead.
If we don't mind, before maybe we could invite another panelist to say something. I would also love to stress the fact that it's very challenging that not so much of us, especially in the African space, I'm just learning about civics engagement and environmental education from the Western world mostly, but on the African ground, I would even mention from the universities where we studied from, you hardly find a specified or specialized kind of, personnel or doctor or professor who is pro-environmental education and civics engagement per se. So to me, it seems like it could be something new in Africa. Most of us have been doing projects, but we don't know how to connect them to education, how to connect them to the civics engagement and engagement of maybe the leaders and stuff like that. So that's a challenge which is happening. And I should say it also affected me when I was choosing a topic for my master's research, because I wanted to do something that is in line with environmental education. But looking at my university, there was hardly supervisors who are directly specialized in environmental education and kind of environmental communication and climate communication. It's just about climate mitigation, climate adaptation, environmental management, but not extremely very clear. Yeah.
The education isn't there as the focus yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that way, then we're keeping that information just with the experts, right? And can't we all just be experts in our own lived experiences and our own experience of climate, and how to take action? So that's great. He's leading the environmental education in Uganda. Yeah. Hannah, you can come off of mute and share anything more too. I know that you guys have known each other longer. Thank you for that shout
I
out.
just want to share my love very quickly to Richie. He is so good at sharing updates and photos and learnings from his work in Uganda, and we just are so lucky to have him in the fellowship and on this panel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, thank you.
I love it. All right, let's send Gloria some love next. So, Gloria, this is a good follow-up from what we were talking about in, working in diverse communities and really thinking about how do we differentiate the approach with environmental education and civic engagement. In my education, in my master's too, we talked a lot about like building company versus like contact and how do you engage versus like just do outreach, and so I think those are some things that come to my mind right away in tailoring or differentiating your approach to working with communities and how, making sure you're not doing it to benefit you, but it's relational, and it's reciprocated and all of those beautiful things. So wonder if you could share more about your experience with that, and especially those working in communities like environmental justice communities who are disproportionately affected by climate change.
Yeah, thank you. And I think some of what I want to share kind of relates back to what Richie was saying about just like some challenges that I think a lot of communities face. But I think just like in particular, when you're trying to, create environmental education or civic education that's specific for, a certain community or group of people or, whatever demographic is your like main audience, it's I think really about storytelling and really connecting it to the experience that people live every day. And, I think why I'm really passionate about the work that I'm doing is that I'm putting a lot of my own experience into, the trainings and what people will be learning. And, it really gives me the opportunity to think a lot deeper about how I originally started learning about GIS and climate change and the environment and how that was limiting to who I was and really trying to, kind of like I said before, change and shift the narrative of what it means to think about climate change and civic engagement as well. So I think a really big part of that is, I think, recognizing the jargon, and there's a lot of jargon I think that we don't even realize exists. I think like with this fellowship, like having like the term environmental education and civic education or civic engagement, like I think there's like a very specific connotation of what those two things mean. And it definitely made me think about what Richie was just saying. Like, I think that both of those exist in a lot of other countries and a lot of other spaces, but it's not necessarily labeled as that. So I think if we can really, maybe expand and like be a little bit more imaginative about how we're defining these spaces that we're in and what we're talking about and who we're talking to, then we can really create that deeper level of engagement with, the communities that we're working with. And then I think also, creating that relationship and connection with those communities is going to be really important to doing that, but also creating something that results in civic action and positive change. So really having a good understanding of, who your community is and, creating a relationship that is mutual. Like, I don't think you can have like a purely altruistic relationship. Like you're definitely going to gain something yourself. And I know I'm definitely getting something from these JS trainings. That's, really great for me, but also ensuring that they get to set their own priorities, their own objectives and goals, and are able to reach those alongside what you're doing is going to be really important.
Yeah, it sounds like you're using like GIS and teaching into that for communities to feel empowered to tell their own stories, right? Like that's what you're getting at. And right, versus someone else who's, the expert telling that story for you and telling you, you know, this is the data points on your community, et cetera. Which is really flipping the script and just, how can we continue to engage, or I don't know, continue to engage, but engage in different ways. So that is the norm, right? And that is disrupting the power imbalances. And at Earthforce, we talk a lot about how young people are a marginalized community as well, right? And we expect them to be citizens when they're 18, but they don't have they don't have the experiences before that. And so that's some of the power dynamics that we talk about as well. And one of my favorite resources that we have young people mapping out who are the community partners in their area in a Y and X axis. And it's thinking about who's in a decision-making power around that issue, and then who's most impacted by the issue is on the X axis, right? And so you have all these community partners, you have these decision makers, you have all these people, and you can see how the power mapping plays out and how you're going to engage with different folks in different ways, but just making sure that you are engaging like with the people most impacted by the issue when you are taking action and when you're going through that process. Like that has to happen. You can't just engage with the decision makers because, right, there's no change that's going to happen. And we're just going to be reinforcing those systems and oppression.
Well, that resource sounds like a really great tool for projects like these, and you know, something that we're really hoping to kind of like be a result of these workshops is, you know, not just, you know, giving them the resources and like the knowledge to like be able to use GIS and make a map, but also, you know, then create that civic action in the spaces that are really important to them. So maybe I'll pull in that resource and use that as well.
Yeah, you know, data visualization is like the name of the game, like moving forward. Yeah, I really do feel it. I mean, it's such a powerful storytelling element. So if we can give people who are impacted by climate change the most those skills to be using data maps and stories and visualizations, it's amazing.
Yeah, and storytelling is also like such a powerful climate education tool too. Like I love, Gloria, that your work is dovetailing storytelling and data, because I feel like a lot of times we've overemphasized data in our in our understandings and in our climate education. But I love that you're saying, no, like we need the data here. And we need to know how to use it, and we need to know how to show it. And also there's like a really deep importance in pairing that with storytelling. And so, yeah, I just want to like uplift that too, because I think sometimes it's like one or the other, but like they're both important together, and we need both together in order to move forward. And also for the communities who are most impacted to know how to implement solutions themselves. I think that's really, really crucial. I think about that a lot with living in a rural place and having like not a lot of like funding and resources to take climate action, even in a state that has a really aggressive climate act. And what does that look like for rural communities? There's a lot of people in this place doing good work, but I think it is important for those communities themselves, whether it's a rural community or a community that's been historically marginalized, or a frontline community that's being disproportionately impacted by climate change. Like all of those communities need to be like empowered to take climate action themselves and not feel like they have these outside organizations and people doing that work for them. And I think the work that you do really highlights the importance of that and gives people the tools to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. You're such a great hype person. I need you around all the time. But yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that point. And I think also, you know, thinking about like the data visualization and like storytelling piece, like that's also, I think also really knowing who your community and audience is really important with that, because I think, you know, there's like a lot of examples out there of really like clean, streamlined, really like high tech minimalist visuals out there that are like really cool and I think are really compelling, but that's not necessarily what every community wants or needs or is going to be the most impactful for, you know, what they're trying to show or, you know, the change they're trying to create. So I think that also, you know, also keep that piece, also keep like that peace in mind when you're creating these visuals and like trying to show your story as well as tell it. So
yeah, I think, right, and like rethinking data and like data collection too, like it starts at the beginning of that process, like right before you're even thinking about visualizing it, like what constitutes as data, right? Like what are even your lived experiences, that is data. Your walk to school every day. There's so much you're seeing and you're noticing, right? And like as a young person, like, okay, what, did you see trash? Like just different issues that have bothered you, or in talking with your grandma about how she's seen the land change over time. That's data.
Yeah,
So,
I feel like that's an entirely other panel conversation. But yeah, it's such a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So we're almost at the hour already, which is like pretty crazy. And I wonder if we could go around one more time and share really in thinking about, right, like I think all of us are so steeped into, like, I hear a lot of themes around systems thinking, systems change, really thinking about collective action. And of course, we're so involved in our work because we believe in leaving behind a legacy and in it really continuing and sustaining. And so I wonder about how you envision the continuation of your work and the application of what you've learned through the CEE-Change Fellowships to create a more equitable and sustainable future beyond the program's duration. So we just have like a few minutes here. So if you could even just share in like a minute or so how you kind of envision that. Richie, you want to go first? We skipped over you before.
Okay. Yeah, it's I feel like I want to shed a little bit of a tear because it comes to that part when you think of something lovely coming to an end. Yes, of course, everything has an end. It will be very disturbing for this CCE Change Fellowship program to end or to come to an end. But it's been a lot of things that have been really learned and unlearned and relearned. So
Yeah,
after after the program, of course, comes to an end, how do I really look at myself and continue this kind of work? For the project that I'm implementing, I've started to look out for more opportunities that I can tap into. I'm trying to partner with local organizations here so that even if, because the project or the program was being funded by NAAE through the fellowship program, and when that ends, at least these partnering organizations, we can still carry on the ideas and the kind of trainings and the skills we are imparting into the children. So I'm looking at elongating it, and every time I'm making an application to new proposal calls, it is something that I put on the forefront. So I don't look forward to stopping that. The networks and the collaboration that we've built, courtesy of this fellowship, has been really amazing. Out of the 30 fellows, at least we are almost like a family, we in touch almost on a daily basis. We keep sharing at a personal level, and we have plans of doing even more projects together. Somehow, some of us, we have already even sent in applications for possible funding opportunities, and we look forward to those. So if they come through, that would be very nice. I don't feel like this will come to an end. I feel like if there is a possibility of having this cohort become something bigger, something bigger than just people who meet for workshops and engagements and end there. I want to look us staying united in the next couple of years so that we can still do amazing work. I plan to visit the US more and more often, and I'll be happy if there are colleagues who are coming from there to visit here. And lastly, maybe from my end, it's been a learning curve. It has helped me to fine-tune my organization and get a clear focus on the things that I want to do. And looking forward, I look at the next 10 years, 15 years, when I look at the story of Yes Global, I see it hinged on the CCE-Change Change Fellowship, and that would be very nice. So even my colleagues, when I'm talking to them, I keep talking about this fellowship, how it has changed my life, how it has changed my perspectives, how it has built on my confidence, and all those are tools and, you know, good skills to use in the next future to get more projects, more opportunities, and keep carrying on with the kind of environmental education work that we're doing. So I really look forward to many things. I may not be able to really elaborate on them right here.
Yeah, you guys have definitely a magical cohort. I felt that in the fall. I really did. And I know it's going to continue. I can feel it. So we are like about at time, but Hannah and Gloria, like anything you want to add? That was like a very touching sentiment. Anything you want to add before we close out? I saw you put your stuff in the chat, Hannah. About the
Yeah, I'll just quickly say thank you, Sarah, for having us in this space to just share about our experience and our project and our hopes for the future. And I think, like Richie said, like we've definitely created a really tight-knit cohort. And, you know, Hannah does such a great job hyping us all up. And I hope to do the same for you, because I love your project and all the work that you have been doing, that I know that you're both going to continue doing in the future. And, you know, I'm really inspired by all the other fellows. And actually one of them defended their dissertation this morning, and I was listening in on that. So I was really, really grateful that they invited us to be a part of that. So, you know, we've just really created our own little community here, and I'm looking forward to the next cohort to join us. So
yeah. It's like, it's not rocket science. Just bring together people who care about this stuff and just provide space and time for them to put their heads together, and we'll figure it out, right?
easy peasy.
Yeah, we don't need to overthink it. We just need to come together. And so we'll end there. Thank you for this space and time that you've given us. It's been wonderful to get to know you leading up to this, and I'm excited to continue working with you as a program manager at Earth Force, helping you integrate civic ed into environmental ed spaces. Today is the final day of Environmental Action Civics Week. Thank you so much for joining us all week. Please go back and check our website out for the past recordings. We have a really great, like what you were saying, Richie, about networks being an incredible sustainable infrastructure from the CEE-Change Fellows. We have a new community of practice that is also an app. It's like really fancy and cool. And so you guys can plug into not just your group, but other folks who are practitioners in these spaces who are thinking about these things across, even internationally, who are practicing environmental action civics, at the link in the chat right there. So go ahead and join us over there, and we'll be sharing resources. There's a course that you can take that's kind of a foundational. You guys talked about this mindset shift. That's really what that EOC 101 course is about. And we'll stay in touch with you guys there. And I'm so inspired to hear from everything you've been doing. And thanks for sharing all your stuff in the chat. We'll be following up. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah, Richie, Gloria.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. This is magic.